record.
Okay, so welcome everyone. So yeah, this is the first webinar we've put in the group, which is the new Facebook group, Self-Development for Modern Men. And I think really the idea for the group and this webinar in particular is just to look at self-development in perhaps a different light, different way. I feel that there's still a lot of stuff out there that is very archaic now, that people that new to the self-development world sort of latch onto, that I did quite innocently, that we all do. But I feel that personally now I'm definitely down a different path to the one I was going on, and I see that it's a much simpler path, and it's a path that leads to much more internal happiness rather than attachment to a goal, or attachment to trying to do lots of things, in the external world to create that happiness. So I suppose that's the start of the conversation really is there a better way? Is there a new path to creating happiness? And let's say, happiness is definitely the end point for most people who are interested in self-development, self-growth, because I think no matter what the personal goal might be, I think the driver for that is always fulfillment. It's always happiness. It's always peace of mind. And I see now that is always attainable to us every moment of the day. And it's not, and perhaps it's the searching for things, it's the constant seeking that actually can cause the discomfort, can cause the upset. And I suppose that's where I'm coming from with this, and that was my ideas behind starting the group. And I suppose that's the starting point for this conversation today.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I can really relate to that. I was on this self-development path when it's all about hustle, 16 hours a day, courses, gurus, green tea, affirmation, 2 hours spent with pride,
journaling, yeah,
all of these. And strangely, I grew depressed, like freaking depressed. And the interesting thing is that I remember that moment. I'm waking up, watching like motivational videos, doing affirmation, green juice, like standing in the kitchen. And it's like, fuck, this isn't working. And the next thought, I am fucked up. Like, I'm not working. It's my fault, right? So, and that's a very important thing, that everything comes back to the I. Like all the happiness is basically, it's like I have to be happy. I have to do all of this. I have to fix myself. And I think what we're going to talk about is really working with the core concept. Like basically all the self-development is about fixing beliefs or changing beliefs. What is the core belief? What if under all of this is the I? So
can you speak on what you mean by I a little bit more?
Yeah, it's basically what we refer to when when we talk about me or I. What is getting hurt? What is broken? What needs the course, or what needs the $1 million, or what needs the blue Ferrari, or the enlightenment? What is that thing which is not good now? And that's like the first belief that I am. So I guess that's a bit out there. So I'm kind of drew out the end goal, if I would say. But I think what would be really important is to build it up from ground up in this conversation, is to say like, okay, what are the day-to-day problems we face with, and talk about that, something we can all relate to.
Sure. John, have you got anything you want to add at this stage?
You guys have pretty much said the things I was going to say. You make interesting points.
Okay. Is it useful then to think to perhaps speak on what the old path is? For, I mean, we've touched on it a little bit. What do people understand by the old path of personal development? Are we all on the same page there?
Or at least, like, what about if we would hear, like, what are some of the problems what we see in our lives around us, like what are the things we can relate to, because it's so easy to talk about things up in the air, like things which is hard to connect to, at least for some of us. And I think it's much better to talk about things we can grab, things which are tangible. So then the whole thing will have context, what we actually talk about, and that we can get value out of this. So Steve, I'm curious, like, if I can address you and ask you, is what your thoughts around self-development? Yeah, what your thoughts around self-development? Is there any kind of issue you see either in your life or around you?
I think what I'd say is, yeah, I've been to quite a few courses of various kinds in the past. I think my experience of the last few years has been the most important ones for me have been the ones that have been very experiential, where the probably 2, 3, 4 days where you've learned practices and been able to use those during the course of the training. And I found a number of those have really stuck, and I use in my own practice, when both sort of personally and as a coach. It's when I used to be somebody who would sit in a training and scribble, and sort of come away with 20 pages of notes that got filed, and that's that. But I think you get to a certain point where you've sort of heard things, you've heard variations on things and flavors of them, and it's time for something different. So for me, the experiential, the sort of body focused work has been very, very powerful and helpful in my own work.
All right, thank you. So as if I understand, it's that basically when you have something you can apply, so not something which is experiential, not something which is like pages and just information and you put it in the shelf, but something you can use it, something which is experiential. Do I get you right?
Yeah, I think it's just really easy for us to engage in all the thinking around things and thinking about ideas. Well, that can be quite a smokescreen sometimes, and if we can drop into the experience that we're having more, then that can be a really powerful lever to shift some more of the kind of fundamental things I think you were sort of hinting at when you were talking about what's the I and what's at the base of our experience of ourselves.
That lands for me. I think when we're spending a lot of time taking notes and really trying to listen intently to what's going on, so we can get all of the information down, we're listening from a very different place. We're listening for the information. We're listening to get the words down, and I think that can just fill our heads up completely with just noise almost. We're not really hearing You know, it's not really landing for us in the same way as when we sit and just listen. You know, and I've heard this said so many times from different people, you know, listen as though you're listening to music, you know, so trust that the concepts are going in, and it's in that silent place, in that space, in that literal space where insights can happen, where we can have an experiential experience of it, rather than just taking notes and hoping we get all the information down, which we know, which I used to do that, and then never ever listen, never ever look at those notes ever again, and it was pointless. And I think it's a trust thing now to just go, well, okay, I'm going to hear what I need to hear from this. I hate taking notes anyway, so it was good for me. when I first worked with Jamie Smart, and he sort of said, "Please don't take notes," I was like, "Oh, that's good." And it works. You know, it does go in. You do hear things that you don't necessarily hear when you're cluttering up your thinking, trying to. What was that he just said? You know, making sure I remember that. You know, you hear it if you need to hear it. You don't need to try and remember things.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for me, the bottom line of any of the work I do now, and the self work I do now. It's about creating a space for insight to happen. It's not about trying to get loads more new information. And I see, you know, at least for me, when I hear experiential, that's what I'm hearing for myself. Now, perhaps, I don't know, do you see something different when you, in the term experiential? Steve?
For me, I think it's the moment to moment felt experience of our life, as opposed to the thinking we do about it. And it's like those two domains don't sort of relate very well. You know, we can do masses of thinking at that level, and it doesn't shift anything underneath. But I would say I've found with quite a lot of clients, a bit of what I would call psychoeducation is really helpful around, for instance, how we all, the sort of typical patterns when we're under stress, because that allows then people go, oh, that's normal that I feel like that. I'm not strange, weird, deficient, whatever. And people can accept it, and from that place, change happens more easily.
Yeah,
so I think that's really helpful thing to do.
Yeah, and that's, you just hit on something I think that is so important about this group, and what I wanted to do with this group was to come from that place that, yeah, every experience you're having is normal, and that's okay. And I think when we start to sit with that, like you say, those things that once we attached to and closed up around and tried to solve drift away naturally, because we say, oh, it's just okay. I'm just having this experience of whatever's going on. And I don't need loads of green juice and journaling and an hour of power every morning to try and solve it. It's just something that happens to people. I'm a human being, and that's okay. And we all are innately whole. I don't know whether Victor's copyrighted that, so I better not say it too often.
You can say, because it's free advertisement.
Oh, I might copyright it then, and then you can't use it.
Yeah. So it's like my experience with this is, there were like kind of an event when I saw that all the expectations I built up on me, what I should be, where I should be, what I should have, all of these coming from TV and, you know, videos and other people, all of these just ideas, just concepts. It's like they are not real things, just ideas. And the interesting thing, like I had so much expectation towards my relationship, and because of that, it didn't work. Like I was showing up, I was being in a broken way in the relationship because I had expectations towards the relationship and myself. And when I saw that those are just made up, then I became satisfied with whatever it is and I am and there is in the relationship, and the relationship started to work. So it's like Michael Neal has this amazing saying that if you do something in order to be happy, you're doing them in the wrong order. If you're doing something in order to be happy, you're doing them in the wrong order. So it's not like doing self-development is bad, or we don't do or can do or not allowed. It's like we can, but if we do in order to achieve happiness or fix ourselves, we're doing in the wrong order. Improvement will come from happiness and not the other way around. And I think that's what, at least from this context, the whole conversation is about. It's like, how can we be happy now and still live life?
Okay, that's the question back to you then. How can we be happy and still live life?
So question back to me. So one thing I want to clear out and make like clear that I'm not enlightened and guru, and I'm like breaking down and crying and having my own coaching sessions and everything. So I think one really important thing is that it's part of being human to have these struggles. I'm not good enough, and I struggle with this, and I need this, need that. And I remind myself, and I have people around me who remind me, and I meditate, which is a constant practice of reminding myself. So it's about reminding to me that yes, in some level I have problems, in other levels I search for solutions, but on top of all of this, I'm already whole. So it's not like problems disappear. It's not like we're not searching for solutions. It's not like we just sit in the pillow and that's all we can, whatever. But it's more about, yeah, these things happen, and just calm the fuck down. and sometimes remind yourself that, okay, it's okay.
I was just wondering then, do you think happiness needs to be defined? Because I think for me, happiness isn't necessarily, again, a place to get to. It's not like be happy, learn to be happy first, and then you will have success. I think it's almost saying, I think Michael Neal is saying, and the way I see it is, happiness is our default setting. And it's not to be confused with intense joy or elation or satisfaction. It's just a level of understanding where it's almost like an absence of other things, and the absence of the things that are absent are our personal thinking. It's the stresses of everyday life. It's the habits of thought. When we see through all those and let them drift away, what remains is happiness. And that's always present. That is always there.
And that's the definition.
Yeah, everyone has access to that. It's not another place to get to. It's just a place to be. Eminem says, I think blissfulness matters more than happiness. It's a nicer feeling, perhaps. I don't know whether it matters more, because I don't know whether if I was blissful all the time, it would be a human experience. I don't know. I think it's good to have the awareness of everything that's going on. I don't know, maybe that's my own interpretation of blissfulness, but I see that as me sort of being super content, super happy, and super noise. Whether it's, sorry, is somebody making a weird noise? Okay. Yeah, I think blissfulness, perhaps happiness is dependent on unhappiness. Again, we're going into semantics of what we define as what do we define words as here, perhaps. I don't want to get into that path because we all probably see things as differently.
There is a very important. Sorry, Matt.
Okay, let's change happiness for acceptance of bodies. Okay.
Can I add something?
Contentness.
Oh yeah.
I kind of view it in the sense that I am content. I allow contentness. Yet it's kind of like happiness for me is the side effect. It's kind of like I don't aim for happiness, but I allow happiness and I'm welcoming to happiness. I'm just not going to be like a dog chasing his own tail when it comes to like trying to find happiness, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, it's attachment to something already. You're already defining yourself by how far you've got towards happiness, and if you do that, then, like you say, you're always going to be chasing your tail, I think.
Yeah. So blissfulness, as I see, blissfulness is our very best option from the thinking mind, from like the ego place. It's like when I want to get to somewhere, the best place I can go is blissfulness, right? So what we're talking about is beyond that. So like the secret and everything, teaches about be like joyful, blissful all the time, and you will attract the good stuff. How would you define blissfulness? Yeah. So I would define, that would be really, I think, a question for Mike. To me, just to continue, to me, blissfulness is the feeling of kind of like exhilaration, if kind of like almost like a spiritual heightened feeling. And some people try to do that by always focusing on positive things and reframing things, but this is still like constant work, a struggle. So and that's why it's kind of challenging to talk about this, because what we talk about is experiential, really. So there are certain, I learned this through meditation, or I saw this through meditation. So probably it would be an important thing to talk about meditation later on. But what I want to get across, and that will put this in place, is that when I was in meditation and saw that everything is a concept, it was okay to be comfortable. It was okay to feel sadness, feel happiness, feel bliss, feel, confusion, having the thoughts, feelings, sensations, everything. Is that, as John said beautifully, is that it's more about acceptance, or like leaning into what it is, like just being. And the interesting thing that once I relaxed completely as a human being and allowed everything to happen, love, happiness, peace were just present. I didn't create it. I didn't do anything for it. I didn't focus on anything. I didn't have anything. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't become anything. It's just, it was there. And I didn't even aim for it. If that changed in the next second, it was cool. So it's more about dropping everything than adding or creating.
I find the less we try to define our experiences, the better. What I mean by that is just allow the experience to be the experience. And I don't know if this makes any sense, but the experience, it defines itself. Does that make sense to you?
All right. It seemed like Matt just froze out. We're gonna wait for him. Maybe it's something with the connection. So, what was your last sentence, John?
Oh, I was just saying, for myself, I was just saying, I do not try to define experiences. I allow them to define themselves, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Like, for example, before I had what I call maybe ego death experience, I don't know if you'd even call it that. I basically at the time, I in my mind I wasn't trying to, I guess you could say, define God, universal mind, the universal force, whatever you want to call it. I just allowed the spiritual within me, yet I never tried to define it. I never intentionally aimed for it. I just allowed it to be, and I noticed through my experience of that, I found much peace, much meaning, and much understanding. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's something I admire in you, John. That you always come back to this simple thing of yeah, Steve is back, of letting things go. And I think that's a kind of, if we would have like one word, is what is the difference, is to it's to accept, like accept whatever is present. So like the old self-development is all about changing and fixing and manipulating. And it's not like there is anything wrong with that, other than if you don't accept, you may move forward, but move into the wrong direction. But if you accept and lean into whatever it is, and sometimes it's hard because we want to be useful, we want to be productive, we want to move forward, and we are cluttered up here. But once we accept and calm down, it's we allow to not being useful or not moving forward, we connect to a powerhouse. It's like, it's more like the subconscious or God or whatever works inside, and ideas come, and we in a flow, and things happen naturally. So like the one is the efforting, and the other, what the Taoists say as wu wei, or the non-effort path. When, and actually there is a, a wrong translation when they say non-action, but Tao is all about action, but action without the internal intention of effort. So when you completely clear, empty your cup, it's like, I want to do that, you go. It's more kind of intuitive path. Okay, Matt just writing to me. I'm gonna keep contact, and I will give the.
Yeah, I was trying to message Matt asking what happened. He didn't reply.
John. Okay, I'm gonna manage that. John, you.
I was just going to say, Victor, that sounds very like Zen, action without effort. That's how I had Zen Buddhism, I guess Zen described to me. A part of the Zen training that masters teach all students to do. If they see the students thinking deliberately, they'll stop them, or they'll scold them. Although that's kind of off topic.
I think it really comes here very well, because the whole three principles, and three principles. I don't know, Steve, have you heard about the three principles coaching? I don't hear you.
Yeah, you need to unmute him.
Yeah, there you go.
But I want people to to do it themselves. So have you heard about the three principles?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Is it something that you incorporate,
Um,
or you're looking forward to learn about?
I don't
Technique.
incorporate it.
Yeah.
I think I get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
I find it quite intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was liking what John was saying just now about the intuitive level of working, because I find I've had some really enjoyable and impacting sessions with clients and other coaches this week, and yeah, I find there's a kind of playfulness can come into things when you're in that place where things flow. If you take care of building a sort of container around the session, then yeah, I love being in that place where things just flow and you can get very creative.
Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah, it's, for example, in a so a coaching session or anything. Yeah, in a coaching session, what I do is to bring people back to their body, to the present moment, and to their heart. I don't know why, interestingly, the heart is connected to this wisdom. And it's like when we up in our head, things just, so it's a different way of operating, if I would say. Once we let go of knowing things or getting somewhere, and okay, just Matt, I'm gonna mute it.
I found when I'm suffering, sometimes I feel a pressure like literally on my heart, and if I actually bring my awareness to my heart, that pain goes away. That emotional thing also resolves itself as well. I know this might sound a little counterintuitive, but yeah, when I'm very stressed or I'm in much pain, I'll empty my mind and I'll focus on the thing that's hurting me without any real thought, and it just completely dissolves. Have any of you ever experienced that?
Is it for me or John? Me or Sid?
I don't mind who answers.
Right.
So I'm just slightly distracted by Matt being on his side.
Yes, it's and actually, Matt, you are twice now, so I can remove the other one, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry. I'm on my phone, obviously, as you can probably tell.
Yeah.
I'm getting I'm changing broadband providers today.
Cool.
And I didn't realise they turned me off so early. So I apologise.
Cool. There are a lot of things
Let's get
happening.
back to
So, John, you had a question.
Oh yes, I was just explaining that before I found the three principles, when I used to get like really stressed out or I used to be in pain, I guess it still happens sometimes. I used to literally feel pressure on my heart, and whenever I focused on my heart and I just emptied my mind and I just allowed that feeling to resolve, my awareness being on my heart just allowed my pain to resolve. And it's just kind of the same when, I guess you could say, I'm in my mind. I try to look at the thing that's hurting me neutrally, without any bias, without putting any thinking to it. And I find if I just focus on the energy of it, it just resolves itself. And I was asking, have any of you experienced that? It's kind of like, going back to your default setting a bit. It's kind of, you're allowing, but you're not adding to it. You're not making anything of it.
Yeah. It's interesting because emotions have 60-90 seconds lifespan. So whenever we upset or stressed out for a day or any longer, it means that we refuel it with thinking. So that makes absolute sense to me, that when you just present with what it is and you present with the emotion will dissolve. And that's something I do like with emotional healing, is just uh, um, I help people to be present with their emotions, and that will naturally discharge.
And how do you help them be present with their emotions in a safe way, that their thinking doesn't get too involved with their emotions? You calm them down first with meditation, Victor?
Something like that. Something like that. I am present and create a container for them. So create an environment for them. So so they can be present with it. So what we do during the day is either distract ourselves with addictions, either phone addiction, Facebook addiction, other kind of addictions, or becoming like numb to it, or so we have strategies to not being present with our emotions. But when there is a coaching session, when there is a container and we have a dedicated time for it, and that I help guiding them, then it's like basically what we do. There is an emotion, we identify and go into the feeling, just feel it, and not using the story, but just be present with the feeling, basically what you've said. And at some point, crying can happen, anything can happen, these things come up. And the beautiful thing, you don't need to do anything really. It's like if you're really present with it, it heals itself. That's an innate healing system built into us.
It sounds like you're teaching the three principles there, Victor, because
Am I?
yeah, it sounds, I don't know what Matt would have to say about it, but to me, it sounds like you're, to a good extent.
Well, I think it's coming from the same place. I wouldn't approach it that way, in the sense of sitting with emotion, because I feel there's a danger there, the way I see it, and the way I understand it, that we're putting form into the emotion. We're giving it some sort of status there by actually focusing on it. But what I do hear from that work is that when people do sit with an emotion, they see that it's okay, and they will be able to cope with it. And I think one thing that really stops people a lot is the misunderstanding that they won't be able to deal with the emotion when it happens, that they won't be able to deal with the shame, or they won't be able to deal with the embarrassment. And that's what stops us from doing lots of things in life. It's not necessarily the thing that we're doing, it's the thought that we won't be able to deal with the emotions, the experience. And I suppose what you're saying is sitting with the emotions like that way is first-hand evidence that everything is okay, even if they do experience that emotion. They're not going to die, nothing's going to happen, life will go on, everything will be okay, they will cope, they will be okay.
Yeah. So do you mean it's kind of disattaching from the emotion?
No, I think it's more just realizing that it's just an emotion. That it's just a
Being
thought.
okay.
It's just a thought. It's just the flip side of a thought. It's not being caused by the event that you're thinking about or the relationship you're thinking about. It's just being caused by.
Yeah, it just is
by your.
Yeah.
Pardon?
So yeah. So this kind of work is as I see, is appreciating our human side, which is vulnerable, which has thoughts and feelings, and it doesn't exclude the understanding that thoughts are just thoughts and not real things, and thoughts create the feelings. So feelings are in one way not real, but in other way really real. So the way I see at least is there are like multiple realities, and sometimes just discharging help people to open up to the reality that, you know, there is something more profound. So what do you think about this, man?
Yes and no, I suppose. I'm sort of coming from the place now where, you know, I never feel like it never makes sense for me now to jump in the quicksand with somebody. You know, if anyone comes in with a problem, I know it's always just a misunderstanding. You know, that they're looking, that they're underestimating themselves, and they're focusing intently on a certain area of life that looks really real to them, and it's generally somewhere they want to get to in the future, or something they want to avoid. But I think, like I said before, I think if we focus too much on those things and try and work out what's going on, how they need to get there, and what's going on in this external world, I don't know, for some reason now it doesn't make sense for me to ever do that, because I know that external world is just self-created in many ways. You know, they've given form to a thought.
Yeah.
And are looking at that thought as if it was real, and I'm putting much more opinion on top of that first thought, so that they get stuck in that thought form almost. You know, which could be, you know, I have trouble speaking to girls, or, you know, I am shy, or you know, any one of those things that we all go, you know, that goes through our heads at any one time, that we latch onto and make our personality. And I think for me, when we move back to source, back to who we are before all that, and going back to what we were saying before about happiness and blissfulness, you know, for me it's all the same thing, because what that means to me really is just who we are before all the thoughts, before all the personal opinions we've got about ourselves.
Matt, could you give us a few more real life examples of that, if you wouldn't mind, please?
In what sense, sorry?
Victor asked you in the chat, so I was saying it to save you reading the chat.
I can't see the chat, sorry, on my phone.
Yeah, I was asking, could you please give a few more real life examples of that, like it in application, perhaps?
Sorry, what's that you wanted me to give examples of?
I'll let Victor answer. He's
Because the thing what happens, and it happens to me a lot, is that if we have an understanding of something, we like to talk about it from that understanding level. And when someone comes in who probably didn't spend or haven't spent as much time thinking about this or experiencing this, it's hard to connect to it. So it would be nice if we could talk about, or if you could talk about now through a few real life examples. So for example, when someone comes to you with something, what do you see as a problem, and what do you say to them?
Okay, so for instance, what I've been doing recently, I've been working with someone who's having panic attacks. And in the past, I'd be looking, you know, before I had a deeper understanding of the principles and how life really worked, I'd be trying to explore the situations that created those panic attacks for them. I'd be trying to explore the thought processes that happened immediately before the panic attack. And those things kind of do work, but it puts a solidity to the panic attack. It puts the panic attack as the thing to focus on, as the thing that needs work on. And whether we come from the place that they need fixing, or whether we say, yeah, they are innately whole, and that it's okay. If I'm looking at why the panic attack is happening, externally, what situations is that person in that causes the panic attack, or what even is their emotions or thought process when that panic attack happens, it gives it much more form. It gives it as though this is something we have to work on. This panic attack situation is the problem. But more and more, and the work I'm doing with this person, and it's really having a big effect, is I'm just saying, yeah, okay, have a panic attack. That's okay. It doesn't mean anything when you have a panic attack. And, because the thing is, what I've learned is that working on the situation, working on the external, it might have an effect, but it doesn't stop it. It doesn't create a better experience for the person. And it's always like a battle, a constant battle where we're up in our heads. So it's about now sitting with the experience and realizing that you are just somebody, you are just the I, going back to the I, you are the I having an experience of a panic attack. And you can, and just like we can watch our thoughts go, now this person is seeing these panic attacks as something that just goes across their consciousness. And yeah, it still doesn't feel nice, but they don't fear them anymore. And they don't have that anticipation of what's going to happen anymore. So yes, the panic attack, which lasts maybe like 5 seconds, might be awful. But in the past, they had maybe an hour either side of it where they were worrying about it and wondering, how can I manage this? How can I cope with this? Now no coping is needed. Now they're just saying, well, yes, I have panic attacks on occasion. But the thing is as well, when we come from that place, it seems that they start to show up less because we're not focusing on them, because we're not being fearful of them anymore. And I think can be, a microcosm for all personal development work. It's when we don't fear our experiences anymore, we don't give them any weight, and they start to show up less.
Yeah, I think that really summed up really good what is the difference. Is like in the self-development as we usually know it, it's all about like dealing with stuff. And what we're talking about is there is a way to like just let the struggle go and be happy, fulfilled now. And one of the fear of the ego that if I'm happy now, I won't achieve stuff. But the thing is that you can still go for everything you want. Just the intention, the place you come from will totally change. In my experience, it will be more like a game. Like as you were a kid and you were playing and you enjoyed it. So all the self-development becomes like that.
Yeah, and I love that. I think that's so important because I think you've hit the nail on the head for me, really. It is about playing, and yeah, it makes sense to journal every morning. If it makes sense to drink green juice, great. But don't have that as a way of getting anywhere. And I think it's when we think that it's gonna give us something that we get stuck. We get in a bit of go down a bit of a dead end. Meditation. I used to meditate all the time. Nowadays, it doesn't make that much sense for me to. But I don't deny its power. And if you're doing it because it feels great, beautiful. Do it. Carry on. I'm all for it. But I guess it's just like you say, it's about being playful and like children and exploring things, knowing that the place you come from is always okay, that you are always grounded in who you really are.
Yeah, and I love that. It's like I think we are on a high note, and we are like getting into all of this. And I'm also um, want to be conscious of the time and say that I think it's a good point to wrap up. And before we do that, like I would like to invite people uh, to just, if there is any quick question to make us complete. So probably Steve, if you have any question before we wrap up, or anything you want to say.
Yeah, not so much a question. When Matt was talking, I was thinking about the clients I saw on Monday, another coach. Probably a bit too long to talk about that now, but it made me think that you need to have your sort of thinking brain online to almost say, yeah, this is a panic attack. I don't need to get involved in it and make it a focus. And sometimes people aren't in a place they're too emotionally overwhelmed or numbed out in the moment to be able to think that thought. So I guess I'd need to be aware of where people are and whether they just need help to create more safety emotionally to be able to get into that place where they can think, yeah, this is just that, and then later, find this more playful place where other things can happen. I guess that's my take on it.
Yeah, and obviously, I agree. That wouldn't be my first session with the client where I just said, yeah, it's just panic attacks, don't worry about it. There was always a lot of discussion about how the human experience works, and we can't choose our thoughts, and sometimes things will bubble up, and we can only react the way with our thinking in that moment. But I think what's the difference is that when we see that it's just thought, when we see it's just, and I don't want to say just a panic attack, but when we see that panic attack isn't anything other than just what a panic attack, it means that, like I said, that anticipation of it, what the Buddhists call, the second arrow of suffering. The first arrow we can't do anything about, that's the panic attack. It's the second arrow of suffering that this work deals with, which is that anticipation and this tying our personality and our feeling to what's going on.
Yeah. Also, Tochi, who is with us, the video is off now, but he wrote in the chat, and I want to present that. Is, for me, happiness is just be calm and do nothing. Really, when I just sitting and do nothing, just enjoy my awesome soul. But I don't think I'm a lazy man. Every day I work hard as I can. So there is nothing to really add to that. I think it's just beautifully said. Beautifully connects the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So, where are we planning to? I'm asking you, Matt. Where are we planning to share the video, or is there any announcement or anything you want to share now?
Well, off the top of my head, I suppose it'll be in the Facebook group. If that's okay with you, Victor, to sort that out. If everyone's okay with that, I mean that's the second thing, I suppose. If everyone's okay with that being there, and then I suppose we'll hopefully I'd be really up for having these as a regular thing. It's been good fun, and it's been enjoyable to hear everybody's ideas about stuff. So if let's try and do it every month for now, or every 2 weeks for now, and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah,
That's
great.
great. And guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the group or PM us, and we are more than happy to answer or pick it as a topic and bring it to our next webinar.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, if anyone's got it'd be nice to have a certain amount of a theme to these. So if anyone's got ideas about what the theme could be, what we could talk on, that'd be awesome. I think that for me, that's the best way I'd like to do it. Just see what shows up in the moment, but have an overriding thing to sort of speak on a little bit.
Well, we didn't get a chance to talk about the theme of initiation into manhood, so I think next time that might be a good place to start if the rest of you agree.
Yeah. Also, yeah.
Great.
Okay, interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Nailed it. Right then.
Take care.
Okay.
Have a lovely weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.